be better off all alone. Be better off all alone. I'd be better off all alone. Think I'd be better off all alone.
We're a community focusing on all things cryptocurrency. We're perfect for seasoned vets and beginners who are new to the space. I'm your host, Michael Cryptocopia. You can find me on Twitter or on Discord at Mike Spellcheck. Today, we are joined by two, amazing members of Request Network, Robin Mazurel, brand manager of Request, and Benjamin Shafi, their engineering manager. Request is an open network for transaction requests. They're building a distributed transaction network for businesses and users to send both invoices and receipts. And they're disrupting the likes of PayPal and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Benjamin, Robin, how are you guys doing today?
Great. Good to be here.
Good. A bit late here locally, but
it's what, 1 a.m. over there?
Yes.
Thank you so much for bearing with us. I know we're across the Atlantic Ocean right now, but we appreciate you hanging with us this late. Listen, I wanted to ask you just a little bit about how you got started on Request. Could you both tell us briefly a little bit about your background and how you met the founders at Request and how you got involved?
Sure. You want to start?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Cool. So before I worked at Request, I was doing marketing at Disney for 3 years. And in my last year of working at Disney, I started reading into blockchain books and joining communities, doing more research into projects like Stratus and Districto X. And that really caught my attention because I've never really experienced communities like that on the internet, really close, sharing info, and just communicative. And that really piqued my interest. And when Request came, I was one of the original people that did their ICO too. So that drew me into their community. Setting it up a bit, contributing as in daily talks, but also finding out a bit more on how Request could be useful. So then I set up the Reddit together with some other people. So Adam, another team member, and that got me into talking more with the co-founders, which I had daily talks with, and ended up eventually being invited to Singapore talk and join the team. Very short version.
Awesome. Yeah, as for me, I basically had my interest peaked on blockchain around 1 year and a half ago, even though it had nothing to do with the ICO craze. I was really fascinated by the technology. And little by little, I got more and more interested in it. And then suddenly I wound out looking those new job offers from Request, and I got super excited and decided to apply. And I ended up starting to work for Request about 1 year ago. About 1 year ago. And I started out as a developer, and quickly the team grew, and I took a more and more role of engineering manager here.
Got it. I feel like I've heard many different versions of that same story. I found out about crypto, and then it's a rabbit hole.
Yes,
that's true.
It is a crazy rabbit hole. And I think there's really Robin and I are good representation of kind of the two ways that you can get people into the blockchain world. Mm-hmm. And I think something that's really awesome about blockchain is how many different people get attracted to it. It's not just developers. It's not just people who are there for the finances. It's really a mix of people. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's this huge crossroads of so many different, economists can talk about it and add something new, and traders can talk about it, and technologists, I feel like anybody, because it's touches so many different parts of society. Why don't you give us a brief elevator pitch for Request for anybody who's not familiar with the project?
Yeah, I think go ahead.
You want me to do that? Okay. So in a very short version of explaining what Request is. It's an open network for transaction requests, which we use as the tagline at the moment. Transaction requests being mainly invoices / e-invoicing and receipts. So the thing you can do with the Request network is create, share, and interact with objects which are invoices on a distributed global network to then send over across the world without being limited to local invoicing systems.
Okay. Which is useful by pretty much everybody.
Yeah, and especially like if you look at the things happening in Europe at the moment with the EU directive making e-invoicing mandatory for business to government, it shows that there's a need for such a thing as us.
And is that e-invoicing exclusively? You can't invoice via paper, or e-invoicing is a mandatory, separate way that you must have an e-invoice capability if you're running a business.
For EU, you mean?
Yeah. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Yeah,
for the EU, it's a B2G at the moment, so business to government. So they make it mandatory within the EU to when a company invoices a government for whatever, they have to stick to e-invoicing. So they can't actually send papers anymore because they're not considered legal.
Got it. Fascinating. So what are some examples of organizations, companies that wouldn't exist if Request Network was used worldwide and widely adopted, today?
That wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Like who are the middlemen that you guys are disrupting?
Well, it's more than creating a system that's not really there already. So we're not like moving anyone from their place. We're actually like creating, like there's an open space, and we just taking the opportunity to occupy that space. So right now, there's not a set actor in the e-invoicing world, and it's still an open space. Yes. There's still a lot of opportunities going on there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Can you talk to us a little bit about the immediate roadmap?
Yeah, so right now, as you might have known, so a few months ago, we released a request protocol v2 alpha. It was back in February. And we're basically, the next steps is about stabilizing what we've released and prepare it for actual public release, wide open release.
Okay.
Yeah. The main, if you look at the public roadmap we have online, main point is privacy at the moment, because that's a huge topic for the protocol team to build within V2.
And what does the stabilizing process look like right now? How is that going so far? Do you have any idea what the rough release schedule looks like?
So basically, first steps is just getting internal people to test. And when I say internal, it's the actual team, but also people that we're really close with in the community. And we're getting them to really stress test our system. And then when we are comfortable with those people and they return some good experiences with the system, then we're moving on with the next steps. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Quick PSA, everybody. We have a ton of questions already from the AMA thread, the Cryptocopia AMA thread. But if you have any questions for Robin and Benjamin, then hit us up. Let us know. We'll be sure to ask questions. We got a ton, so we're probably going to cut my questions out pretty early and then just get out of the way and let you, pick the brains a little bit. I wanted to know, so you guys are built on top of Ethereum. Your REC is an ERC20 token. And if there were a lot of concerns about scalability, especially toward the tail end of 2017, when CryptoKitties was flooding the network, and you actually had peak transaction volume that was getting cut down because the platform couldn't handle it. Obviously, that's still an ongoing concern, still an ongoing conversation. How do you guys factor that into building out your own network on top of Ethereum?
Yeah, so basically our biggest reason for creating the V2 I've just mentioned about was actually the speed limits that Ethereum was facing at the time. And even though we always plan on embracing the full functionalities of Ethereum, as long as it doesn't match the throughput that we expect from that system, we will be finding out new solutions to still utilize Ethereum, but just create a faster system.
Okay. What could you talk to us about, like any of those potential solutions that you're kicking around a little bit?
Yeah, so the main one that we're thinking about is a batching system. So we're not actually like storing the whole information on Ethereum. We're just like creating a hash of the data and putting it there, which is already way less intensive. But on top of that, what we're doing is we're basically batching a lot of transactions, so it costs less to put it there, and also it's faster to get many transactions at the same time. So that's the main way.
Okay. Now, is that hash a reference to the invoice?
Yeah, the hash is a reference to the invoice that is stored on IPFS.
Okay. And then any party that's involved in transaction or given access would, I'm assuming, be able to, access the hash and the invoice. And then while it's stored on a public blockchain, some random person.
So that's like the vision of it today, to move very fast and to be able to test some of our hypotheses. We kind of like don't encrypt data, so it's not meant for it's not meant for usage right away, because we're just testing out stuff. But like as soon as we're done with the encryption part, we will be giving more and more access to more and more people.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. You have to increment, you have to scale over time. Your updates to the network. Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Exactly. Certainly was
not. So I saw that you, as part of the alpha release, are working on detecting Bitcoin payments as well. Mm-hmm. How does that work exactly?
So the Bitcoin payment detection works in the way that, so for Bitcoin, it's quite common to generate addresses per transaction. So a usual Bitcoin transaction will go as you generate a new address, and then you will receive some payment on that address. So we make use of this by saying, okay, so you make a request and you look after you monitor basically this address, and once this address is filled with money, you consider like the request would be paid. That's how we do the payment detection on Bitcoin.
Okay. Okay. So the Bitcoin address, is that the public address?
It's the funds address. The address where you want to receive the funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just look through and see what else I want to talk to you guys about, because there's a lot here. So you are building the protocol in three different layers, right? So the core layer and the state transaction layer is Ethereum, obviously, and there's IPFS is layered in as well. Is that considered part of the core layer or extensions?
So that was relevant to V1. Right now, we've actually changed our paradigm to accommodate for V2 and like the high throughput. So this was part of our initial architecture, but it is not valid today. So right now, what we have is a separation of what we call like a storage layer, which is basically blockchain plus IPFS. So it's how you can commit stuff on the blockchain and be sure that the data integrity is still integral. And then basically we have other layers that are basically about how easy it is to access the data, because it can be very hard to navigate hashes on the blockchain. So we actually need a specialized layer just to handle that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do the extensions and application layers fit in there exactly?
So extensions, which are now called advanced logic, is one of the outermost layers. So it's code that will end up in your request, and this code will be executed when someone interacts with the request.
And is that coded within a smart contract?
Right now, there are multiple ways we can do it, and there will be probably multiple implementation of it. So depending on the use case, you could have actually code in smart contracts or code in actual like JavaScript code playing around.
And then where would that JavaScript code live? How would that work?
Yeah, so right now we're still again not super sure about this, but like probably on the IPFS.
Okay. Cool. All right. What else do we have here? So we're gonna switch to community questions in honestly about 5 minutes. But CC, make sure you're letting us know what else you want to hear. All right, guys. So I saw, like, I think it was maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Well, it was Pi Day, right? 3.14, March 14th, so a little while back. You guys put together a promotion, I guess. This fun little project with the Maker team, right? Where on Twitter you could send out a tweet and donate money to a charity. You could donate, I think, Ether, I'm sure probably DAI, I'm not sure what else exactly, but could you tell us a little bit about how that came together?
Yeah, so basically, like, the product that makes that a reality isn't ours. It's from one of our community devs, Mike. And like, the product Sense Crypto basically is built by him, and he has a close relation with Maker, so do we. And was like a joint initiative to promote the day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and how would that tweet work? Like, how was it designed to actually just send your donation via tweet?
Yeah, so basically you could send a tip. So the whole bot is to send tips in whatever currency you wanted, that's supported by the request network. That was an equivalent of Pi, and that could be like how wealthy you are, you could decide yourself, and then allocate it to one of the good causes that were picked. And there was like a leaderboard on the website that held or tracked the most like active tippers, basically.
Okay. They didn't already have like wallet addresses, did they? Did you guys set them up?
No.
Okay.
No.
One day.
Huh? One day. Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get some, some charities and some, some really large public facing companies, their own wallets, so that they actually know how to do this shit. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Let's
hope so.
What else? What are you guys working on right now? Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
So right now we're basically focusing on stabilizing our infrastructure, getting feedback from our testers, and integrating them as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. So we are able to basically again deliver this to the public as soon as possible.
How many testers do you have?
We have two from the community.
Yeah.
2 that we're really regularly into contact with, mm-hmm. at least.
Yeah, whole internal team.
And the whole internal team, yeah.
Okay. And what kind of what kind of feedback are you getting from them so far?
Well, we kind of expected the feedback, so it's nothing new. So we're already working on it. It's basically everything related to encryption. People don't want their data out in the open, which is not a big surprise. So we're it just for us proved that we should really emphasize getting that quickly sorted through.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should probably switch it up. Enough from me. Let's open it up. Open the floor. First up, he's back from the dead. John D. Rockefeller wants to know, without breaking an NDA or anything like that, if you could openly mention any names, without breaking the NDA, without opening and mentioning any of the names of the teams that you're working with, how many projects are currently using Request Network product, and how many companies are in the talks?
That's 2 questions. So using products, it's can't really say, obviously, except for the people that, or the products that are already public. So Donate, Gilded, Sense Crypto, Reclute, and all the products that Adam made. So the WooCommerce plugin. rectify. And what was the second question again? So the second part of the question,
if you could say, how many projects you're in active talks with to onboard them in the near future, or maybe this year, someday soon.
Can we say? Yeah, not really. Yeah, like most to be fair, like from a partnerships perspective. So let's talk that. Most work is done with the open partnerships we already have, which have clients that are like interested in us, but obviously the product isn't near to be production ready for a larger company to integrate the protocol at the moment. So it's still all in discovery phase, talking a lot, discovering like the real pains of the industry, especially the invoicing industry, which is a huge upcoming industry, looking at what's happening in their field without even touching blockchain, and introducing blockchain in their mindset is really our biggest challenge at the moment. So,
introducing blockchain to legacy companies.
Yeah.
What when you're having those early discovery talks with these partners, what would you say are some of their biggest concerns? What kind of themes do you see coming up more and more? Like, why aren't they using blockchains?
One big one is the privacy one. We've been in a lot of, or I joined some talks with partners where like privacy is mandatory for bigger companies to have on their data. While like transparency can look as a good thing, and it obviously is, but it mostly scares off like bigger companies that don't want to fully show everything they do on the financial front, on the invoicing front. So that's one learning we got, which resulted into us now building a privacy feature into. And also, second thing is like the not being educated on what blockchain actually is, what it could bring to their organization, and how like it's generally pretty scary for people that aren't deep in the topic.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that. I would say that from my perspective, at least, on the last point you said, the most common thing is like you talk about blockchain and then people are really excited about it, and then they're like, oh, it's public. So like and we're just like, okay, but it's encrypted, but people still, there's like education, I would say, is the biggest part. Like understanding that it's not because the data is public that it's sensitive to be leaked, and that there's a difference between the two. I think that's one of the biggest gap for the market.
Yeah, and I think like the sort of front-facing people, so including me, that's one of our biggest tasks at the moment, is educating those people that we see as like potential clients or targets to integrate, to really give them the ropes to understand what it can bring to them without being scared of implementing. Yes.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Question number 2, G.I. Joey. How is the team going to improve their communication skills? 2 previous partners have publicly criticized the team and left. They hinted at poor communication. And so G.I. Joey wants to know, what your thoughts are there.
First of all, by joining your AMA. So that's a good step, I think. Like in general, we've been taking a lot of steps internally to increase communication, and not only talking about blog posts, but in general trying to be more on the front or in the public as a organization. The biggest, so we were partnered with Wikimedia France, but we learned from that mistake. So we're you can see that in our public communication a lot, that we're a bit less proactive talking about potential partners, for example, breaking NDAs or whatever. So that's an improvement we've made to ensure it doesn't happen again. But on the negative side, I guess it impacts the like future things we can address, which we know internally, but we can't really tell.
Okay.
I guess that. Yeah.
Understood. I mean, it's challenging to be working, so heavily invested in a developing product that, is the main focus of the business. There are other spaces that you're paying attention to when you're operating business, but at the same time, like sure. I understand. Harnish wants to know the whole business model of request depends on the network usage. More network use implies higher burn of REC tokens, which means higher price for the token. How will the team secure the use case of the network?
The what network?
Of the request network.
Use cases.
Oh yeah, so obviously one of the main thing we're doing for that is to make it as seamless as possible to actually use the network. And that's not only, so what was released in February was just the first step of that, but we're taking a lot of extra steps to make it even easier, not only to blockchain developers, but also for Web.2 developers to actually be able to use blockchain technology as easy as possible. And anything that reduces the friction between the world of today, which is basically most developers know about Web 2.0, and the world of tomorrow, which is the blockchain. We're like basically taking a lot of like active steps in that direction, and I think that's where we can have the most effect, basically.
I see. All right, next up, Sideways. Sideways wants to know, when is the ETA for beta and mainnet of version 2, V2?
Yeah, we don't have any ETA right now, but as soon as we'll be comfortable giving it, we're worrying about like over-promising. So as soon as we feel comfortable setting an actual date, we'll be doing it.
All right. H underscore, like 5 underscores here.
Yeah.
So H, I guess. A lot of mystery. All right. Put it another way, when do you expect those things to happen? Most of us are at least somewhat familiar with the software development cycle, including the testing part, and they don't need to explain that to us.
Can you expand? Yeah, can you expand on that question?
I think that they were referring to the milestones, like the release schedule is obviously going to change as bugs are found and testing is pushed back a little bit, but they want to know what rough date you guys have in mind for certain milestones, like the main net long term, but the beta short term.
Yeah, we prefer basically to emphasize hardcore on testing, and I think we will have a lot of new things coming soon on testing, but we still don't have like dates for mainnet right now. But right now, what we want to do is first, so we're finishing our phase of like doing the internal testing. When we're comfortable, we'll do an actual public testing, and when we're comfortable with that, then we'll move on forward with the next steps. Since we're dealing with very sensitive things like smart contracts and money, we cannot really take any shortcuts there.
I mean, the example, like the legendary example of either shortcuts being made or at least weaknesses being ignored would be the DAO in, when was that, mid 2016? Because when you lock up a lot of money in an unstable environment, that can end badly.
Yeah.
It can end,
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't. It can.
Don't jinx it.
Shadow 89 wants to know, roughly how long will the team be able to keep working at this speed without cashing out more Ethereum?
Without cashing out more Ethereum. So I can, like, with my limited knowledge of the whole financial flows within the organization, we try to not cash out Ethereum at all. So one of the actions is the CDP we created with TrueMaker. So we locked 20K-ish, 90 point something ETH to withdraw DAI to like have as a like way to spend on things that accept DAI. So expenses for business, for example, without having to sell ETH, because as far as I understand, we really don't want to sell crypto at this stage. And we're fine from a financial point of view to sustain a long time. And it's also showing in like the fact we're still hiring new people and things like that.
Do you have any open positions right now that you want to shout out?
No, actually not anymore, since
You just closed one a few weeks ago.
No,
so,
yeah. So we closed the positions for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who was that? Well, maybe not the name of the person, but what position was that you recently closed?
Which one was it?
It was for dApps development. Yeah. It's a position for dApps development.
Yeah. Got it. And how, like, just generally, how do you guys feel about the whole? I know that you're working closely with the maker team, but DAI and how fast that team and that product has really taken over the ETH space. I mean, they locked up, I think it's around maybe 2.5% of the ETH supply right now.
Yeah, it shows that there's need for an actual trustable stable coin, which is perfect. And I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Let's see here. Max Verstappen. I hope I said your last name right. Request is developing a platform/ecosystem for others to build their own dApps. But how does Request gauge the market so that they know what to develop so that others can take advantage of the platform?
So first of all, we have a lot of like internal knowledge about the market, the invoicing market and the payments market. But on top of that, we partner with people like PwC to actually get advice from them. And they do talk with quite a big sizable amount of clients.
Yes.
So that's really useful also for us to get that expertise.
I'm sure there are multiple NDAs that you have with PwC, but that's really, it's exciting to hear that they're involved in the space in some capacity, right? I mean, that's not something that is, completely comfortable for them, or at least it wouldn't have been 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, I think that many of those companies, they've seen what digital transformation, like how big the digital transformation had an impact on like everyone. And they really want to get as fast as possible on board with the future of technology. And so they're really trying to stay on the frontier of that space.
Yeah. It's a lot easier after you've seen the, rapid over time expansion of the internet and software eat, every other industry. It's a lot easier to get it right the second time.
Yeah, I completely
agree.
All right, Flynn's next up. Does most of the team work 40 hours plus per week? I wonder what all the working hours have been spent on. 18 people working 40 hours per week should show for something. I'm not trying to blame the team. I don't know about programming, to really understand. So I just want to know what's taking up time.
Yeah, first of all, is any development on a blockchain is basically walking on thin ice. So it's extremely slow development compared to any web technology that you might use otherwise. So I used to work in a non-blockchain startup, and there the pace at which you can move is just like phenomenal compared to the blockchain pace at which you can move. So there's many concerns. First of all, the tooling is a bit more not as strong as the old web tooling. And also, it's way more risky to kind of deploy things into production because you're kind of dealing with real money there. It's really, it's a bit harder to sandbox stuff. And all these things, they make it basically slower, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the tooling is catching up, and we're also ourselves building the infrastructure for ourselves to be able to build faster and faster. So that's how we kind of try to compensate right now with the problem. Mm-hmm. So we could basically, at some point, we actually had the choice. Either we kind of keep using full on, just go at the same pace as like Ethereum development, or we could kind of like build the architecture one way. So we have a bit more leeway in how fast we can develop stuff. And right now it's just a trade-off that we're making to get a bit more slower now to be faster later. Yeah.
Okay. Roughly how many employees are you at right now?
We're
Almost 20. Yeah.
Got it.
By the way, to answer the question.
Sorry, Robin, what was that?
Oh yeah, I said, and they're all full time to answer the original question.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Fine plus.
G.I. Joey's back. G.I. Joey wants to know, is Fiat to crypto gateway still in the works?
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
Is the Fiat to crypto gateway still in the works?
Yeah, the crypto gateway.
What is that? I don't know that terminology.
No. So currently, no, because the only thing that Fiat is working or working on with Fiat is actual payment detection. So to like look back into what the request network actually is, it's for invoices and to detect whether an invoice is paid or not. You have to have a way to detect the actual payment made for the invoice. And when we're talking about fiat payment requests, we're talking about having a way to actually detect payments being made on a fiat payment network, which is really hard to leverage towards a blockchain environment.
Would you need an Oracle?
Could be, yeah, or partnerships with an actual network. Or other, there's multiple ways. There's also the whole PSD2 initiative is also an option for this.
I'm sorry, the what initiative? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, PSD2. So that's basically EU standard for reading APIs from a bank, which you could connect with the network to then discover payments as they go.
Has that passed legislation?
Yeah, it's actually in effect at the moment.
Got it. You guys are so farther ahead than the US is.
It'll come. You have open banking.
Yeah, I mean, and however you feel about regulations, they can be really limiting in a lot of ways too. So, I guess there's the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm.
Flignats. Flynats? I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, the regular developer.
Do you plan to release an example Angular app and or TypeScript when you release V2 beta?
Yeah, for huge, it hasn't been necessarily discussed, but I don't see why not. We probably will. We want to, once V2 is out, we are basically gonna push a lot of ways to show how people can actually build on top of requests, because we'll be reaching a new phase which we will want to actually show people how to use the protocol as much as possible.
Shadow89 wants to know, for the Alpha V2, we knew it would be around Q1. Could you give us an estimated time frame about the beta and the mainnet? We know these would not be set in stone.
It comes back to your previous, I guess.
Yeah, same answer.
Still same answer.
All right, it is definitely on the hearts and minds of the people. But yeah, thank you for answering, honestly. Don't know who asked the next one, but it's a long one, so this might be a multi-parter. Has Request Network identified their specific target audience? Public companies are using centralized solutions. This might be two different questions, actually. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, have you guys identified the specific target audience? Public companies are using centralized solutions, and government nonprofits are way behind in terms of their technology. So who will be buying the majority of tokens?
For the tokens?
What? Who will be buying the majority?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a question about adoption. Who would you think are the early adopters of Request Network? What is the theme? What's the pattern that you're seeing with the kinds of companies that are interested and are going to be actively sending transactions through Request?
Yeah, so basically to It's a very good question, by the way. But to understand it, we need to kind of look at the properties of a request network itself. And by looking at how a request network is actually made, it uses the blockchain. It's really open. The code is open source. We create there's a bunch of value propositions oriented around around request network, and different value propositions to different actors. So we have some value propositions about transparency, where we mainly target like governments, and we do already initiate some contacts with them. There is some value proposition oriented for fiat and crypto payment detection, where we target like CFO, bookkeepers.
Yeah.
And then there's the last big one, in my opinion, which is e-invoicing. And then we target basically people that do B2G invoices for procurement, e-invoicing softwares mainly. So those are kind of like the three value proposition and three target audiences.
And are you focusing on any one of those three more so than the others right now?
Yeah, so again, we're like, the vision is to pursue all of them, but like the first thing is always, to kind of limit the scope of what you're trying to achieve, like beginning. So we're targeting payment detection in the very beginning, which is CFO and bookkeepers.
Okay. Next up, Toby from The Office fame. Which industries does Request already have a client or a foot in the door? And how do you see this evolving as you progress?
Industry, a foot in the door. Mainly the e-invoicing industry, I guess. So that's our full focus at the moment, and we have a foot in the door there. Yeah, so that's something we're expanding on development both, and testing out the things we make and see how we can improve them.
Do you see competitors within e-invoicing sort of watching each other? And if there's, one company that you have a really strong partnership with, is that maybe spurring some new interest from their competition? I'm sure it's probably hard to tell.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. So we can, in the end, you kind of compete with multiple people on different kind of levels. Like since we have different value proposition, you can kind of say that on some of them we compete with one actor, on some other we compete with other actor. On the first one that we're targeting, we haven't identified a big competitor right now, so it's really an open space. For the other two, there's still no one winner for example, for government, for the value proposition to government. There's no big winner there right now, so still a lot of opportunities.
Yeah,
and it's a bit hard to say, actually. Quite hard to say.
Yeah, and it's also like the fact that at least from our perspective, that we don't only do invoicing, but we also do the payment detection of invoicing of the e-invoice, which is not something that's happening at the moment. So maybe there are competitors coming up, but not that we're aware of.
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
Sideways has 4 different questions. So they're all kind of similar. So let me know which ones you want to hit first. But I'll just kind of go and then we can catch them back up. How is V2 Alpha coming along? I know we talked about that a bit already, but how is it coming along? Can we get an update on the progress on the accounting app? I know V2 is priority, but any ETA on Adam's wallet? And can we please go back to a scheduled technical update?
So tech update, wallets. So you want to start with the tech things?
So can you reiterate the tech? I think it was the first question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one was specifically about V2 Alpha. How is it coming along? We've talked a lot about the testing, but if there's anything that you can elaborate on.
Yeah, so V2 Alpha is coming along really, really good. So nothing crazy happened right now. We had a couple stability issues, but nothing out of the ordinary, and they were super quickly resolved. So everything going really good on there. So not much to say, which is a good thing.
No serious fires to put out. That's good. Can we get an update on the progress of the accounting app?
for the accounting app, so we kind of during the first iteration of request, we went very wide to see what like basically what sticks, and then we saw what sticks, and accounting, which was such a huge opportunity, but we had such huge like hurdles to actually really capture the market, the accounting market. So instead of like targeting this right away, we kind of like really we're trying to create actually an environment, an infrastructure for that app to actually really be able to flourish. So right now we're building infrastructure, and after we'll focus again either on pursuing the accounting app, or on focusing on companies whose job it is to actually build those accounting apps.
Yeah, and to add to that, like with talks we had with our contacts and partners, one of the key like takeaways was that it's really hard for like bigger companies that already are using a specific accounting tool or software to switch them. So switching cost is super high. So that caused us to now first, like Benjamin said, create infrastructure and ways to integrate within or existing software. And if that sticks, then maybe there's a market to create an actual own accounting app. But for now, as in like adoption speaking, the chances are way higher that the network is actually used when you make it as easy as possible to integrate with the software they're used to, instead of trying to convince them to switch software.
Got it. Could you just tell us a little bit about why those switching costs are so high for traditional accounting firms? Is it familiarity with the software they're already using?
Yeah. Basically that. So not really the switching from plans, so subscription way in that type of way, but the whole business process is made for a specific software or ERP that they're using, and just integrating a fully different software suite into that is really costly, but also hard to convince CFOs for.
Just again to build up on what you're saying, let's like right now we're still in the pre-blockchain world, and like one of the good things with the post-blockchain world is actually it's going to be way easier for people to check and to change from one to the other, since the data is going to be owned by the user and not the actually company. The company will have the right to innovate, to create the best UI. But if someone wants to switch from one to the other, well, they own the data, and it will be very easy since the data is like public access. It won't require this really complex migration to go from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, you're not moving an entire virtual warehouse full of data because it's not centrally stored anymore.
Yeah, so you can just like build on, like, it's the beauty of dApps. Basically, you can just like create the best like a front to the data.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, real quick. There are, I think, two more from Sideways. I know V2 is the priority, but is there any ETA on Adam's wallet?
No.
Okay. Is that like under development right now, or is that?
So basically, how it went with Adam's wallet is he started working on that before he joined the team officially, and he's now part of the team. So currently, his focus is mostly on
the infrastructure.
On the infrastructure at the moment.
Sure.
And it's still like in the works, but yeah.
All right, and then last from Sideways, can we please go back to a scheduled technical update?
No, I've talked a bit internally, and what we're trying to achieve is create a bit more, like, how do you say, publicity, not publicity, but public accessibility of what's going on from a developer point of view. And then derive the information from basically GitHub to make technical updates. but whether they're returning on a like bi-weekly basis or a monthly basis, that's undecided at the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next up, PSD 34. Is a scaling solution, this is a little bit longer. It's one question, but it's a little bit longer. Is a scaling solution with fast finality, high millions, high, maybe in the ballpark of millions, high transactions, trustlessness, and predictable fees necessary for your idea of a future, more final version of request to be adoptable in mass?
Oh yeah, so high throughput is essential to the adoption of requests, especially since we're targeting big actors that don't deal with like 1,000 transactions per day. It's like often when we check one government, for example, we had like figures like 1.3 billion transactions in the year, and that's just like says what kind of scale we're dealing with here. And so we really like need to have a strong emphasis on those solutions.
And then as far as the solutions, you're looking at, what are you looking at besides Plasma? Because Plasma is still being actively developed, and it's not, it's not where we're at yet.
Yeah, so Plasma, again, like as soon as like Ethereum like enhance their capabilities, we will use them if we see like an opportunity that suits our use case. But right now we're developing our own solution to tackle those problems. And so we have our own solution to kind of write on high latency, low latency and high throughput data onto the blockchain.
Cool. I don't have a username for the next one, but are you guys planning on approaching new companies? Like, how are you going about doing that? And are you planning on hiring a salesperson?
That's two questions. Yes, we're still like pursuing new contacts. We like talking for Christoph, so the partnerships person, which could be considered sales, I guess, in this question. And as like currently he copes very well in contacting and dealing with all the relations. But as the company grows, obviously we'll have to expand that too.
Makes sense. Yeah. Elites next. Can you give us an update on the governance implementation? Have you found a good system that is both secure and easy to launch updates on? And what level of decision making are you planning to give token holders via governance?
Right now, we don't have a concrete solution for that, but we have working groups, internal working groups to tackle those issues because they're really close to our hearts.
And that's a whole other. I guess thorn bush is the wrong expression, but governance is challenging. That's just as I would assume. I'm not, a political scientist, but as complicated as the tokenomics of a network. So I would imagine that's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
I don't have a username for the last question here, but it is the last question from the community. I will let you guys know if we have any more added in the next 5 minutes, but they want to know, so last year, as well as in a recent blog post by Etienne, there's been talk about the request use case for governments. Okay, so it's three-parter, actually. Are you currently negotiating with governments about request and the positive impacts that it might have on governmental financial systems?
So yes, we are already in contact with some governments, and some governments are quite interested to be more transparent. It's also about like we have a good use case with the tax use case, creating visibility of like your country's financial system, and so we have had like quite a good amount of interest for that actually.
Yes, in multiple countries.
What has their feedback been like so far?
Again, very excited about the future of where things are going, like in terms of open finances. A little bit of confusion, such as like with the big corporations about like a blockchain and like how public or private it is, but still mostly really good interest, mostly positive.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited about governments actually adopting this kind of technology. I really think it will be really good for creating more transparency and more trust between all the parties, basically.
I'd always expected the governments would be one of the slowest movers.
Yeah. Well, there are some countries that have like shown a bit more interest. Like if you follow the news, you might know that like Estonia has been kind of like really like aggressively tackling blockchain solutions.
They've been crushing it.
Yeah. So there are some people interested.
Cool. And then I think the last question, along that line, was: are you developing frameworks or applications specifically for governments at their request right now? And if you are, then has any government gone as far as to already test out request?
I guess we can maybe already talk about the
yeah, you can.
Yeah, so we've been like, this is a small sneak peek, I guess, but like we've been already invited like to some hackathons, specifically like invited by governments. We will know more about it quite soon, and we've already like developed like proof of concepts for those governments.
Cool. Very cool. Can you say at all what the hackathons might be revolving around, like what the topic of focus might be?
Yeah, like again, briefly, we will have more news soon, normally, but it was basically around the taxes.
Yep.
Understood. I think that's it from the community. I was just, curious before we wrap up, what you guys are excited about for the rest of the year. What developments, maybe not just in request, but in the space in general. What are you excited to see?
I can start. Like weirdly, it's gonna sound strange, but like this bear market has been really interesting. It's like it's tested like really for me internally, the people in the team, like that, like it shows that everyone is dedicated kind of to making the project happen. And I really feel like that we're really, really close to crossing a frontier, and I'm really excited. And I would like love to talk more about like deadlines and actually what infrastructure we're building. But I'm super excited to get it out and get everyone to use it. And I really feel like this year is going to be a huge year for in general.
Yeah.
I feel like most companies that actually made it until now through the bear market are the companies that actually are going to be able to go big. So that's what I'm really excited about. And it's not just us, it's also the other people in the ecosystem.
Yeah. Same, like kind of the same answer for me. Also like really interested to see what Ethereum keeps doing. So the POS stuff coming up, things like that, and scaling in general for Ethereum itself, and see how we can leverage that.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, if you can make it through a bear market, and if it's challenging, right? It's challenging, especially as the price drops, and companies are raising money in crypto at the peak. But then I think it definitely breeds a stronger group of companies that can power through it.
Yeah, and also like it really strengthens your community, I think, over long term, because like the people that stay are interested in what we do and not necessarily only in token price.
Sure.
Cool.
Well, listen, that about does it, you guys. Thank you so much. Can you let us know if there are any, channels that you want to let us know about? A Telegram? Should we be paying attention to your blog? Where can we find you?
Website, the blog lives on our website at the moment. So that's request.network still. And the official channel we use to communicate with the community is Discord. But I'm almost everywhere. So if you type and you're lost, I'll find you.
Easy enough. Thank you again. This was a pleasure. We really enjoyed sitting down and talking with you. Cryptocopia, if you're not following us on Twitter already, then hit us up at crypto_copia. It's where we're announcing all of our guests for our weekly AMAs. It's where you can get any other information. We post highlights from the AMAs. They're 10 to 15 minute long videos, of the best of the conversation, and, the parts that got us really excited about it. Hit us up at Discord. You can find me in there, as well as the other mods. And check out our website too. I don't think we've announced this yet, but I'll tease it. Why not? We're going to publish a podcast. We're going to start posting the audio from these AMAs so that you can find it everywhere that you listen to your favorite podcasts. So fun things happening with Cryptocopia, with Request. There's a lot going on under the hood. And you guys, thanks again for joining us. We will be sure to follow what you're up to. And until next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you.
See ya. I think we're probably pretty good. I never know if it's finished or not.
Can't decide. Do we turn back? Do we turn back? Missing your face. First up to mine. What are the days? End up in time. How do we fall? How did we fall? Do we go left? I see no signs. Do we go right? Can't decide. Do we turn back? Do we turn back? Missing your face. First up to